Imagine waking up tomorrow. You reach for your phone. It's dead. You look at your watch. It's stopped. There's no clock on the wall. No alarm. No ticking. No numbers anywhere. You have absolutely no idea what time it is. Not even a guess. You don't know if it's 5 a.m. or 10 a.m. You don't know if you slept through the entire morning, or if it's still the middle of the night. This is the world before clocks existed. For almost all of human history, people woke up every single morning with no idea what time it was, and somehow they survived. They built empires. They planted crops. They traded across continents. They knew when to pray, when to work, when to sleep, without a single clock. So, how did they do it? Before there were clocks, there was the sky. The oldest forms of timekeeping are all things that involved looking up. For thousands of years, humans tracked time by observing the sun, the moon, and the stars. They noticed patterns. They saw that the sun rose in the east and set in the west. They saw the moon change shape over the course of a month. They saw the stars shift slowly across the sky. And they realized something important. The sky was a clock. A giant, cosmic clock that never stopped. This is how people woke up without alarm clocks. They woke up with the sun. Their bodies were tuned to the rhythm of the day. Before clocks, people lived by something called task-oriented time. They didn't measure time in hours and minutes. They measured it in tasks. You wake up when the sun rises. You work in the field until the sun is directly overhead. You eat when the shadows are short. You sleep when the sun goes down. The sun was the clock, and everyone knew how to read it. But the sun wasn't the only clock in the sky. Ancient people watched the stars. They observed the moon, and they noticed that the sky changed in predictable ways. Some stars were especially important. In ancient Egypt, the reappearance of the star Sirius each summer signaled the annual flooding of the Nile River. This was life-saving information. In ancient Greece, the return of Sirius marked the hottest and muggiest days of the year, giving us the expression, the dog days of summer. People tracked the phases of the moon, marking its transition from crescent to full, and then back again. This helped them track weeks, months, and even seasons. They built monuments aligned with the solstices and equinoxes, Stonehenge, Newgrange, Chanquillo in Peru. These were not just religious sites. They were gigantic calendars. At Newgrange in Ireland, the rising sun shoots a beam of light through a long passage and into a chamber that otherwise remains dark, exactly on the winter solstice, every single year. It's an extremely slow kind of clock. It ticks one time a year. For a Neolithic agrarian society, knowing the shortest day of the year would have been critically important information. Nearly every culture that we have any record of has done some sort of astronomical timekeeping. But watching the sky wasn't enough. People needed to know the time of day. And here's where it gets clever. They noticed something simple. Shadows move. A stick stuck in the ground casts a shadow. As the sun moves across the sky, the shadow moves. And it moves in a predictable way. This is the beginning of the sundial. The oldest known shadow clocks come from ancient Egypt. Egyptian obelisks may have functioned as shadow clocks as early as 3500 BC. They divided the daytime into 10 parts, with an additional 2 twilight hours, 2 in the morning and 2 in the evening. Around 1500 BC, the Egyptians created the oldest surviving true sundials. These were small, portable devices with pointers and dials. This is also when the Egyptians came up with the concept of the 24-hour day, 12 hours of day, and 12 hours of night. It was a revolutionary idea. Sundials spread across the world, to ancient Rome, Greece, China, the Middle East, and beyond. But there was one problem. They didn't work at night. They didn't work when it was cloudy. They didn't work indoors. So what did people do when the sun wasn't shining? They came up with even more clever solutions. So they invented something brilliant, the water clock. A water clock is simple. Water flows out of a container at a constant rate. Markings on the container show the passage of time. An ancient Egyptian court official took credit for inventing them in the 16th century BC. The oldest known water clock was found in the tomb of Pharaoh Amenhotep I, who ruled from 1525 to 1504 BC. These were not just functional devices. Some water clocks were ornate works of art. And here's something that might surprise you. Water clocks were the state-of-the-art timekeeper. Up to the start of the Renaissance, they were more accurate than early mechanical clocks, which didn't even have minute hands. Even Galileo Galilei used water clocks as late as the 1600s to time objects in motion. The Greeks took water clocks to the next level. Plato, the famous Greek philosopher, invented a water-powered alarm clock. Can you imagine? Plato's alarm clock used lead balls that floated in water. As the water rose, the balls would eventually tip over and fall onto a copper platter, creating a loud clangor that would wake up his students at the academy. The first alarm clock was invented in ancient Greece, over 2,000 years ago. Water wasn't the only element people used to track time. They also used fire, candle clocks, incense clocks. The idea is simple. Fire burns at a steady rate. If you mark a candle at regular intervals, you can tell how much time has passed. In 9th century England, King Alfred the Great purportedly commissioned a 6-candle clock to plan his day, with each candle designed to burn for about 4 hours. In China, incense clocks were used from at least the 6th century onward. They used marked incense sticks, and even spiral incense coils, to track time. Some incense clocks were elaborate. One Chinese dragon boat design had incense burning through a silk thread at the allotted hour, dropping 2 bronze bells into a basin to sound an alarm. And here's something truly amazing. When different kinds of incense marked different periods of the day, a person could tell the time by smell alone. Can you imagine? You could wake up, take a sniff, and know exactly what time it was. And then there's the hourglass. Here's something that might surprise you. The hourglass was a remarkably late invention. No documented evidence for the hourglass exists prior to 1338, when it was depicted on an Italian fresco. The first mechanical clock dates to 1283 in England, decades before the first hourglass was ever recorded. Why so late? Because sealing sand in glass without it getting clumpy is difficult. Moisture makes sand stick together. It turns into a brick over a period of months. Hourglasses weren't very accurate compared to water clocks, but they were useful because they worked everywhere, on land, on ships, in the dark, in the cold. They were reliable, and they still work today. In board games, in kitchen timers, the technology is over 600 years old, and it still works perfectly. Then came the mechanical clock. The first mechanical clocks appeared in Europe in the late 13th or early 14th century. The earliest recorded public striking clock was set up at Milan in 1309. These early mechanical clocks were nothing like what we have today. They had no minute hands. They're hour hands only. Their accuracy was terrible. Early mechanical clocks were accurate to only about 15 minutes per day, about the same as a sundial. An error of an hour was not unusual. But they were revolutionary. They could run continuously, without needing sunlight or water. They could strike bells, calling people to prayer, to work, to rest. The word clock itself comes from the French, Latin, and German words meaning bell. The first clocks were designed to ring bells. Over the centuries, mechanical clocks became more accurate. Spring-driven clocks appeared in the 16th century, pendulum clocks in the 17th century. And for the first time in human history, people knew exactly what time it was, down to the minute. And that changed everything. So here's the question. We have clocks now. We have watches. We have phones. We know exactly what time it is, down to the second. But we've lost something. Before clocks, people lived by the rhythm of the sun. They woke when it rose. They slept when it set. Their bodies were tuned to nature. Now, we wake up before the sun. We stay up past midnight. We ignore our body's natural rhythms. We're disconnected from the sky. We've traded the cosmic clock for a tiny screen on our wrist, and we're only just beginning to understand what that costs us. We live in a world of schedules, alarms, and deadlines. We count every second, every minute, every hour. And in doing so, we've forgotten something ancient, something important. The next time you check your phone for the time, look up. The cosmic clock is still there. It's been there all along. And unlike your phone, it never dies. It's been ticking for billions of years. And it's still the most reliable clock we've ever had. So the next time you glance at your watch, remember, before clocks existed, we knew how to tell time. We still do. It's written in the sky. We just forgot how to read it. Maybe it's time to remember. The end.